We are on day 19 of our 30 watercolor tips and tricks. It's starting to look like something here. Make sure you're checking off your days if that sounds fun to you. And we are going to paint this guy. Come on, that's cute. I do not feel confident that this is the perfect, actually I feel confident that this is not the perfect way to teach the value scale. So we're going to talk about the value scale and we're going to implement it somewhat. I would say it's more important when you're looking at a photo that you've taken on vacation or something like that and you're like, I really want to paint this picture I took. Then I think the value scale is going to be more important. But when we're doing these sort of simple 3" by 3" doodles and we're just learning the basics of just beginner watercolor, like we just don't need to worry about it that much anyway, but I do want to teach it to you. So stick with me here. I think it's going to work out. We're going to get this cute little dude that we're going to get to paint, right? And we're going to get to sort of begin to understand the value scale. So that being said, make sure that you have your candle. I lit mine off camera in case I actually couldn't. I just have like a little lighter. It was like a whole thing. What else do we need? If you've got something to drink, something cozy, make sure you grab that. I'll just quickly go through our supplies and then we'll start to talk about the value scale. So you need your watercolor paints and a towel or a paper towel. You need water in a little jar or something like that. A pencil and a kneaded eraser. I'm going to be using a size 10 round watercolor brush, and then I have this ultra fine point Sharpie. So ultra fine point is the size that I like. And we have a 3" by 3" square of watercolor paper. We are going to be using our little booklet that we have, and this is one where you might want to, if you don't have this, you might just want to like look up a picture of a value scale, but I'll also turn it around and you'll see it on the camera here in a moment. If you want to have a little scrap piece of paper, we're going to work on creating our own little value scale, kinda, like we're not going to worry too much about it, but so that's our basics for that we need for today. And so let's get into day 19 value scale. The value scale is a system of organizing values. It consists of 9 values ranging from white to black. Try matching values to your reference. So it's just the idea that there is a way of organizing it. Let's flip to it and find it real quick too. It's towards the back of your little booklet if you've put them kind of in order. So this is our value scale right here, right? And see it is just dark to light. I did it 2 ways just for fun, light to dark, but it really is just the one. You never need to see it twice. And if you can look at your vacation photo and maybe the sky is very, very light that day and you find that it's actually in the beginning 1 or 2 of these, maybe the second one or something like that. And you can kind of, when you're mixing up your paints, mix one that has that lightness. And maybe you notice that it's a beach and far off in the distance, you can see some sort of a shore, and that shore is actually very dark. And this is going to help you question, how dark is it, right? So then maybe you go, okay, no, it's not maybe black, or maybe it is, maybe it's all the way in this value, or maybe it's 1 up from there, and you're questioning it. So then when you go to put it on paper, you're going to make sure your paint is this level of darkness. Maybe there's water because we're looking at a beach, and then we go, okay, well, where's the water? Maybe the back of the water is very dark, and when we get in, we see the water closer to us, maybe it's lighter. Or vice versa. I don't know what you're looking at that day and how the lighting is and what time of day it is. But if you were to bring a value scale, maybe even just keep this one in your paints, especially if you travel with your paints, or if you like to take pictures and paint them, this helps you challenge the lightness and the darkness. And when you can get that right, it does not matter what color you used. And that's a really kind of cool trick. You see people who do paintings of animals, like let's say they paint a cow and it's in all these vibrant colors. The reason it works is because the values work. So maybe on the front, what's this called on a cow? Like a nose? I don't, like a, I hate looking dumb, but I do, so that's fine. But like, let's say right here, it's really light. So maybe that's done in a light yellow or a very, very pale blue. But then when we get onto this side, maybe this is in the shadow, we're going to have a very dark purple, or we're going to have, right, something with a very dark value. So if you use this, this and you match it up, you're going to find you sort of unlock a whole world of like, it just works, and it works because of the value scale. If you're here today and you're looking for perfection, I'm gonna need less because I'm not feeling perfect about this, but I think it's such a fun one. So we've talked about the value scale, and here it is. If you don't have these printables, if you go to day 0 for the prep of this, you should be able to find the links for that. And you can see I've done all of these different guys because the first one I did was this, and I was like, okay, I think I can make him different and we can learn about the value scale. So then you notice the differences I made on these ones where I really did get into this darkness more on these ones, and I kind of want us to simplify it into, now this is going to remind you of day 5 where we talked about 3 values. If you are going to get into the complexity of all of these values, your artwork is going to be extremely photorealistic. I mean, it's just like, if you're going to match this, that's awesome. I don't really have the patience, though I hope for it. And I like to simplify things. So you may get into this. Let's say you're doing a flower and you go petal by petal and you try to match the value everywhere to the photo that you see. Awesome. Today, we're not gonna, I would lose all of you, I think, if we did that. So instead, we're gonna kind of go into like 3 separate values again, and just noting that somewhere then the middle would have to live somewhere around here. The darkest value would be somewhere here, and maybe we don't want full black for this. Maybe we keep it here. And then the lightest, we're probably not going to go white. We're going to go like this. So 1, 2, 3 maybe, and that will be good enough for us. Okay, I'm sure you can find complex videos about the value scale if you're looking for that. Okay, so here's what we've got. I do think that this one is probably a good one. You can take a screenshot at any time if you want to have these ones like to save to look at a different one. But we are going to start with observing as we do, and then we'll make a value scale and go from there. So all of the leaves are pretty much in the same place on these guys, but some of them you can notice like light to dark in a more strong way. And I might say it would be even these two, because this one it's a little leans towards darkness because I see this brightness here, but on these leaves I don't as much. It doesn't really matter. This isn't one we're going to overthink, but see, this one I didn't get into the darker values. So if I put the value scale here and I look at it, you can see we didn't get into this land. Okay, we get close, right? But it's just not exactly there. And you'll decide kind of what's good enough for you. Do you care about this, or do you care about this guy being cute, right? This one I did a little bit more sketch work on top of, which was just kind of fun. If you're going to try anything like this, follow your curves. You've already got them, okay? And so that was kind of fun. But now I think I'm going to move. Actually, okay, this one, what did I want to tell you about this one? Oh, that if we do this and you're having trouble with wet on wet, it's like, we don't care about wet on wet today. We're just going to chunk the colors in. So if it's wet and it's going to blend, if it's drier, it's not. We don't care. This is awesome. And it's like the only petal or leaf on here that did that. And like, we don't care. We just want to chunk in color, and it really simplifies it for your brain so that you're not too afraid to paint sometimes. See here, it's dry on top, so that's going to be more glazing than wet on wet. Okay, and I think I'm going to start moving some of these out of the way. I think we said that these two were the closest. So, all right, so for the observing of it, we're just going to go, there's a bunch of petals, or I keep calling them petals, I'm sorry. So this is like an aloe plant, right? I think they're a little thick for it. It's not an actual plant, it's a doodle. So if it's an aloe plant, great. And they all kind of start by coming out of the center. They're like a clump that comes outward, right? And this one tips all the way over. This one goes up to the top. So we have kind of like a, if you did the wave with your hands, it'd be like down, up, down, maybe. Okay. And what else? This is like a sort of like a wide teacup, or like you know, one of those big wide ones you'd get. It's not a standard coffee cup, it's not a standard tea, like dainty teacup. It's one of those wide sort of bowls. And this dude has feet, which are made up of very simple shapes, so we won't overthink that one. And then the smile is adorable because wide eyes. That's what I see. We've got a little bit of space on the bottom, a little bit on the sides, but it gets close to the top, and we don't care about that today. So I think we're going to move to the value scale. Now notice I didn't get precious about it. I didn't create a rectangle. I didn't look to have one of everything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, well, I actually did do that many, but not on purpose. And so we're going to create some paints, and we're going to get to this, but what I want you to also realize is that on this, oh, we already talked about that, how this can be any color. So I want us to focus on value versus all of the colors perfectly matching together. So we're going to take our brush, grab our water, and for a moment, you're just having some scrap of paper. In fact, I'll do this next one right here on a square because some of you just have squares available, and that's great. So remember, we have all these paints. If you have this set, or whatever set you have, let's count how many greens you have. This set has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different greens. And that's awesome, and it's a lot, and you can tell some of them are very different from each other. But that being said, none of them are going to get me to this dark value in the value scale until I bring in color theory. And we will be talking about color theory, I don't know what day that is, but we're not there yet, right? But you're going to get a little taste of it today, okay? So I've got my water, I've got my towel close. I'm going to now try to create a puddle that's very light. So I'm just going to dip my brush into my water. For me, to make it easier, I'm going to start with a light green. So a little swipe of green, put it on here, and right away, it's darker than I want. So I'm going to add some water to it. And then maybe clean the pigment out of my brush and add more water to it because I want very light. Man, I'm a mess today, aren't I? Okay. Very light. And I don't know that this is going to be as light as I want, so I'm actually going to put it here because we're playing for a second. And once you nail it, then you can line them up and put them in order. Very light, almost hard to see on camera, right? And then if I want another one, we're realizing we're going to light to dark, and in watercolor, we get our colors light by adding water. So it makes sense that the darker our puddle would be, the more pigment is going to be in it, maybe the less water, but we'll get into color theory as well, but not yet. So for now, I'm grabbing the next green. For me, that's on the bottom right. And I'm not going down the line of greens. I'm just looking for something that's a little bit darker. And I'm going to put it here. So we're just playing for a minute. We're finding something light, something a little darker. Maybe you go to another one. Now that's too dark. It was kind of a big jump for me. So I'm going to add some water to it and see if I can get it to be, and now here's my comparison, is my little value scale. So I just want it to be like a little bit darker, and I'll load it. I'm going to put it here. So we're just playing is all we're doing. This is not a super science-y version of this. It got a little darker. How do I get it a little darker? I can add more pigment just into the puddle I already created if I don't need it to be here later. That's up to you. Okay, that's a little darker, and all we are looking at is light and dark. A way to test this later on is if you take a photo of this and you go to your camera and you put it on black and white, or I think it's called like noir sometimes or whatever. And then you can test yourself to see, did they get darker every time? So don't be distracted, I guess, by the colors that you're seeing. We're looking for lighter all the way to darker. And I'm kind of getting there. Now I'm going to get into the next one, and I kind of want to get into like, I want it darker. So I'm going into the third green up from the bottom right. And let's start to see what I can do. Okay, look at that depth. We're really getting darker. We're going to get somewhere around here. And we're going to want to get into color theory. Don't be worried about that. It's just one thing. Okay, I've got this third green up from the bottom right, and I'm choosing it because it's a dark green. So whatever darkest green you have, you may want to even mix a little bit of blue into your green if you don't have this set to try to get your green a little darker. I'm going to swipe it on here. Notice there's very little water now. And I'm gonna do the third red down from just the third one down from the top left, and I'm gonna swipe my brush into that red because they're complements. They're across from each other on the color wheel. If it's helpful to see that, I actually think the color wheel is the one right before this. You probably have it at your hands, right? Green, red, that's how we found it. And I want to add a little bit of red into this, and you'll notice we're going to get almost into a black. So let me zoom in again. Right, that's almost a black. Now the color could be right, but I could just need more pigment, and that will get it even darker. And it really should look like black. It's a really cool sort of color theory thing that you can do. And I very rarely use black because I like to make them this way instead. So I'll go even darker maybe and go here. And then I probably can't get much darker than that, but look at the difference. Now this is just experimenting. These don't need to be perfectly stepped with the amount that changes on the value scale, but I want you to understand what we're looking at. And maybe you do create one, maybe you create several, maybe you try it with different colors, because the more you do that, the more you're mixing your colors and you're just sort of understanding value a little bit differently. So I feel like this is pretty good. I mean, I'm happy with it. It gives me a variety. It helps me remember. Look how light when I add water. Look how dark when I add pigment. Look how much darker when I add its complement from the color wheel. Okay, so the color wheel we'll talk about another day. But I'm going to go back to day 19 on my little thing here. But we've got the value scale for now. And that's just our way of organizing our values. You don't need to leave this near you. I'm going to move mine so I can let it dry and I don't accidentally bump it. And we've got some paints made up now, and we don't need those to be the exact ones we're going to use, but for now we'll just kind of move those aside because we're going to sketch. And so grab your pencil, grab your kneaded eraser, and I will do, I need to just choose one of these and stop going between them. All right, awesome. So this little cutie, let's start with the bowl. If I place my thumb, it's kind of like maybe just a little bit taller than my thumb. If I put my pencil down here, I've got about that much space at the bottom. So I'm going to come up like this, place my thumb, put a mark above the top. If you're not using this size paper, this might not be helpful, but that's okay. Remember, we have pretty much equal space on either side. So as we do this first line, it does dip down a little bit like a smile, just a little though. And I'll match it down here, but not as wide. Good start. Remember, press lightly. And then I'm going to come down a little on both sides, and I'll start to know if I like it. Okay, I widened it. Maybe down. No, it can come down. And then, so we did the smile. Now we pull this together, and that gives us kind of the shape that we want. And remember, it doesn't need to be perfect. You can do a bunch of lines and erase the ones you don't want. So we've got that, and then let's just kind of swing this around like this so that we have this sort of skinny pancake up on top. And when you do it, you'll go, oh, I don't like this part or whatever, and we'll just erase it. Shift it. It's all going to come together. And I got less space over here than over here, and I need to decide if I like that or not. I'll just show you what I'll do about it if I don't like it. I'm going to bring it in and then erase. Then I got to use my other line as a guide. And if I would have erased it first, I couldn't use that to help me kind of make sure I had the shape that I wanted. So this is like a little bit closer. Funny stuff like this where it's supposed to be symmetrical, like same on both sides. I just like to take an extra second on and kind of make sure that's actually the direction I'm headed. There we go. Something like this. And while we're here, why don't we do his feet? Realizing that most things have just a shape we can find in them. This is like an oval or a rounded off rectangle. Either way, it might be a tiny bit skinnier at the bottom. And look, it basically touches right here and creates this little triangle. So I'll put it here. Can't wait to see what you guys do with this one. I honestly, you guys are so cute about this. So, all right, I've got that. And now this is a tube. That's all it needs. 1, 2. That's all it needed. Don't overthink this one. And I'm going to erase some of my other lines that got kind of thick down here because I think they're kind of distracting. Same thing over here, but it's got more space between the foot and his body, but maybe yours doesn't. I'll look for the same sort of bottom. Great. My cat is real wily today, so she's been like really wanting me to play with her. I don't know how she hasn't been doing it this whole time because I think it's because we keep filling the bird feeders and keeping them full. And but here she is. I'm giving her pets. She will jump on my back when she wants attention. I need to teach her some better manners, but this is a good start for that body. And why don't we get into the face while we're at it? I actually kind of like this one, how it faces this way a little bit more. It's like this direction versus facing forward. And the only reason that's true is that it's kind of moved over to the right. I've got these wide eyes and then a smile that's not as wide as the eyes. And whatever you do is great. You can try this a couple times to make sure you like it. Just press lightly on that pencil. And we're going to start getting into the leaves, fronds. I'm not sure what it is with aloe sections. Okay, that's enough of that. And I love doing stuff like this because these shapes don't exactly matter. And they're just wider at the bottom and they have curves on the sides of them. They come to a point. And basically that's all they kind of need to have for them to work. So this first one right here is sort of like a spike up the center. A little bit of a curve that goes this direction, rounded out towards the right. So you can kind of put dots where you want to start. And then let's look where it ends, about this close to the top. It doesn't exactly matter where you went with that. So we'll swoop it around and turn it into something. Remember, we're pressing lightly on our pencil, so we will move this if we want. Now for the sketches, we don't need to add any of the bumpy parts. We can do that later. So for now, let's just consider them spikes. Spikes, that works. And now I've got this one. I'm going to use this to guide me for where everything else goes. So if I did this one on the right, look at this. It comes about this far up. Put a dot. Starts over here next to it. Okay. And then I'm going to go all the way over here. And now because this is 3-inch square and yours is a 3-inch square, we can just use the edges of this as our guide. So these lines are our guide and the ones we've already placed. I see that it curves over this way first. You can even put a dot there. Now swoop it over, bring it up. Pressing lightly. So in a moment, we'll just change all the wonky stuff. Great. Good spike. Now we can see this one in the middle. It's a little bit skinnier and it comes to here. Later, I might want to move this one lower, or maybe I'm doing it right now. We'll just make these little changes as we start to see more. This one scoops over this way, kind of a bigger scoop, comes down and it's little. You've already got 3 spikes. This is awesome. This one is almost like an ear that goes like out and away. I don't know if it looks like an ear, but we'll do that one. Let's notice though that we're doing this one. So we actually need space for this one. And we've got like the point, a space, the next one, a space. So that tells us we need to save a decent amount. Okay, so we're coming here. Let's put dots where it's going to start on both the bottom and the top. And all I'm doing is I'm looking over here, picking those 2 areas. I'll swoop it over and up, down and back over. You're off to an excellent start. Pause me if you need to. I'm going to put a spot here because I do like that they're sort of really staggered. None of them are right next to each other for the tips. So this one's nice and high. And it ends here and about here. Nice curve to it. We'll just change what we don't like in a moment. I've got 3 left. 1, 2, and 3. Let's actually start with this one that comes over and down because I think that will help us a little bit as well. I need space on either side, so maybe like a pencil width in. And let's maybe put a spot here because we know it's going to come over before it drops. I see a straight line here, but the rest is pretty much curves. So straight, and we'll just dump it down, come up and over. If you want to be wobbling your pencil for those edges, you can, but you'll see you don't need to. And then I've got two more. Let's bring this one over. I like this little guy. Look, it's actually short right here. It's like tiny. Goes up to here, and it's going to follow the edge of my paper for a little while. Notice I put a dot there. Down, curve. And you can make it wide or skinny or however you want to curve it. And we just have one left. We're all going to change these in a second and just adjust them, so don't be worrying too much. I like to just kind of get them in there for composition first. So I just added my last one. Now, my dots are too dark. I don't like that. I'm going to get out this kneaded eraser. Somebody just said in the comments like that you can take your kneaded eraser and just like roll it across all of this. Absolutely, you can always do that to lighten the whole thing up if you want it lightened, or you can just lighten where you want it. Like, none of it's going to bother me except for those dark circles. If I even see them later, but I don't want to see them anymore. So, okay, so I've got like this. I'm checking it out. I want this one to curve slightly differently, so I'll do that now. And so you're just looking at yours as well. Some little adjustments, but we're being really easy on ourselves. This is just a little buddy. I also hear some of you sort of expecting, I hear it, you're not exactly saying it, but I hear it in what you are saying, that you want this to be sort of perfect when you're done. And I get it, I totally get it, but also, you're going to do 6 of these before you love it. I mean, that's just how it works. If you want to get good at plants, paint a ton of plants. If you want to get good at rocks, paint a ton of rocks. If you want to paint pencils, paint a ton of pencils. You have to do a lot to understand the techniques you're doing, figure out the shape that you like, right? You don't go to a piano lesson expecting that on your first lesson, you're leaving with a song, right? Okay. I like my sketch, so I'm going to move my pencil and my eraser out of the way. And from here, I am going to, I guess, decide which one of these I think would be better for us to use. I'm looking at them on camera just to decide, but they're both really similar. I'm going to go with, I think I'm going to go with this one. And they're very similar, so it doesn't matter. And when we look at this, I do want us to simplify it, probably to just the 3 values, but if you want to get more detailed into it, you can. And maybe find a photo of a plant on the internet somehow, take a photo of a plant in your home, and then study it, because you'll find that, especially in here where it's tucked away, you're not seeing as much light, so those will be dark. But we've got light, medium, and dark. Okay, and we're going to simplify it to that. And notice some of these blend really nicely. Some of them are chunked in, and you can see these sort of harsher lines, and both are lovely. Okay, because I don't want us worrying about how our water's drying today. We're going to instead just chunk those colors in. I'm going to try to remember when we're done to add these little tiny dots with our paint. And we'll go from there. So first, actually, let's go ahead and we're going to get our paints ready, because we made paints, but not exactly for our painting. So I want us to have something like this. Pick any color you want. I think I'm going to do it to look sort of like terracotta. So some sort of maybe brown and orange combo. But whatever it is you pick, you're going to want to be able to go into a color to add darkness over here as well. So you can either make an extra puddle. Here, let's spray our paints too. You can either make a puddle that's really dark, or just know that when we get to this sort of shadowed side, you're going to do it from your paints that time. So I've got this, which I like. And I don't know, you may already have to change the water in your water jar. So watch for that. It doesn't, whatever, right? And so this is for the planter itself. And actually, let's just start with the planter. I think it might be nice, and then it can dry while we get these colors how we like them. So I'm taking my brush, and I cleaned it and I dried it, and then I'm going to get it into this larger puddle. And I'm actually going to fill in the whole thing. Oops, there's a little hair. The whole planter, including where the soil would be. So watch my brush coming all the way up there. The whole body. Notice I'm leaning into the belly of my brush to fill this in efficiently. I'm getting those little feet and I'm connecting it all like one shape. And from here, you can decide if it's puddling or pooling and or not. You can lift up some of that if you want to, and then you can take that darker color and load it in like a shadow. Now, if you made a puddle and you're like, ooh, it's not enough, you can just grab from your paints real quick. While this is wet, you're okay. And I'm gonna lift, so when we talk about values, this is quite light, and we're gonna simplify it for this. We just need something darker on the value scale to be over here. I'm gonna touch it to the bottom of his foot, the bottom of this foot, and under here. Maybe just a little bit over here. So you can play with this as long as you want. I am really sort of simplifying it. If you needed it to blend more like I just did, you can clean and dry your brush and come back at it with a damp brush, and you can just blend wherever it needed to blend better. That's a really lovely trick to sort of have in your pocket. And then this is good. We're going to let it fully dry, and then we'll paint this as a glazed, like a layer that'll be wet on dry for the soil. So at this point, we can move it for a minute and work on our green paint. So instead of just going straight to the dryer, this will give us a minute. You need your 3 different sort of simplified values here. You maybe have them. And maybe you mixed these up and kind of took one from the other and don't exactly have them now. So I want you just to go like, okay, this is pretty light. That's good. What about your middle one? And do you like it? So for my middle one, I have a combo of the green on the bottom right and the 5th one up. That's just what I wanted in this case. But I don't want it to get too dark. So I'm adding just maybe a little bit of water to it. So this time when we're assessing our puddles, it's to go light, medium, dark. And this one, see how dark it is? I'm going to turn it into one puddle because I'm the boss of this, right? We can do anything we want here. I want to add some green because I feel like it got too red for me. So I just added some green right back in. Remember, you can mix these paints any way you want. And now this is a nice dark green. I think I'm going to darken the middle one up just a hair. And I'll have this light one. That seems pretty good as well. Okay, now we maybe still need to dry this. The reason I can tell mine needs to be dried is when I turn it like this, you can see the light still reflecting on there. So we'll dry it real fast and we'll keep moving. It's interesting how differently this one dried than this one, but I love both of them. If you get to this and you're like, oh, it took over the foot, remember with that wet kind of damp brush, you can still lift a little bit and kind of get some back. Don't forget, you got these little tricks and you can use them like every time we do this. So from here, I like to start with light because that's just how I like to do it. Well, I mean, watercolor is light to dark anyway, so it makes the most sense. So right now, I want you to relax. I want you to use your gut and not be overly perfectionistic about this one, okay? And I'm gonna go this one and this one and this one are pretty light. Even this one, I see lightness in all 4 of those. And since I don't care when my paint dries or whatever, I'm just gonna paint them. Okay, so the more water you do have, the longer they'll stay wet. The less water you have, the sooner they're gonna dry, so keep that in mind. Maybe I even just do these 2 for a moment. Okay, and then I'm going to take this brush and tap it on my towel. And I'm going to get into this medium color. So this is my medium, and I want to touch it here. Now mine is wet, so it's blending, but if yours isn't, it's just not blending. No big deal. And I'll do it here as well, because I see on this petal, I'm just looking. I'm color matching and sort of shape matching. Like, okay, it's here on that petal, maybe down this side a little, and you can use your imagination here and just put it also where you'd like it. But when we're trying to match, that's what we're doing. Now, because I know this is wet, if I did these ones at the same time, my colors are going to bleed more, so I'll fight for control a little bit more. So your easiest way is to let these dry first. So I'll actually just dry mine too, so that I'm trying to keep it easier. So I'm going to do it on camera. Okay, so I've got these little subtle blends here. If it was less wet, the colors would have stayed put a little bit more, but it's okay. Now I'll grab this light one again, and I'm gonna do these other two where I see a lot of that really light value. I think it might be easier if I showed it this way, so I'm coming in. Okay, so I got that light value, and I'll do it on this one as well. Okay, everything next to it's dry right now, so I do know what I can sort of expect. At any point, you can darken up these light values if you find they're just not dark enough for you. From here, I'm going to wipe my brush on my towel and grab some of that medium color again. And I want to add it along the side here. All I'm doing is going, I see a medium color here. I'm adding it. If you feel out of control, you have too much water, take your brush and just wipe it on your towel. I see it up here. I'm going to add it in. If it's not blending enough, I might need a tad more water, but I'm going to say you're probably going to want to use less water on this. Okay, on this one, I see the darkest value. So I'm taking this brush, tap it on your towel if you feel like you need to, and I want to get it right here all the way in the corner. If you look at this and it's not that dark value, you might just want to go to your puddle and quickly darken it. But how dark you want it is up to you. I got a little bit more darkness I just grabbed, and a little bit over here because I saw that darkness. I am shape matching and color matching. It's like those look and find books, like the Scholastic Book Club, you know? Maybe a little bit right here. So I'm going to add it. Now this is already dry, so I'll have a hard line here. I don't care. That's not what we're doing today. I love it. And now I feel like this is pretty good. You can dry it if you want to, depending on how wet yours is. And now we're going to clean our brush and get into the ones where we see our medium color first. I love anything where we can sort of simplify it for our brain. Like, okay, got it. Medium color first. Perfect. I'm going to get into this one, paint the whole thing, more of that medium color. Now it doesn't look quite dark enough. I'm going to quickly adjust and just kind of quickly redo it. Great, that matches the other ones. Well, I don't know, maybe too dark now. So you're doing the same thing as me, I hope. Also, don't forget, you can lift. So if I wanted this lighter, watch that. So good, right? You can lift anytime. What I do see is I want even like a darkness on this bottom. So I'm looking over here, wiping my brush on my towel because really we know we need control on this. And I'm going to add just a littlest bit, very little water down here. I hope you're enjoying this one. It might be hard. Go petal by petal. Whenever you do anything like this, if you're doing 2 petals at a time and it's hard, do 1 petal at a time. Okay, I love that. I think that's beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and clean my brush out, and I'm going to do the next. Let's see. I want to keep with the medium one, so we'll just dry it when we need to. So I think we'll get into this upper one. Okay, so I'm back with a medium. Now, this is wet. I know it, so I'm going to have to fight for control a little bit more. My safest way, though. Okay, fine, I'll be safe. I'm drying it. You guys were so bossy about that one. Just kidding. Okay, medium color here. Light on the tip of your brush when you want to get into these tight spaces. Get into that dark. Now I'm not adding any water, and you might even have had to take some off by wiping your brush on your towel. Look at all that darkness. Good, huh? And I don't have to worry about it getting into the next one because I did dry it. If I wanted more lightness on here, don't forget, clean your brush, dry your brush, and right anywhere you want, you can lift up more of a highlight. And now look at that. I just added some cool detail to it. Hopefully these are starting to come together for you. So these two are both pretty dark. I think it might be fun to practice that lifting technique on those though. But before I get to it, I see this one here looks too light to me. I want to grab a little bit more of that medium and kind of chunk it in down here. It's already dry. So I'm just going to kind of watch what lines it's creating, and that's good enough for me. Okay, getting into the darker color. You don't need to clean your brush in between unless you want to when you're going from a similar color to a darker version of the same thing. But you do need to make sure that this puddle is still that darker value. Okay, so I'm checking it. Pretty good. Yeah. And now I'm going to fill in this one. And while it's wet, I'm going to lift some out of it just to give a little bit more dimension to it. Like I said, this is not the best example of values, but I hope you're starting to understand them a little bit. Okay, I've got this one, and actually I'm going to do 2 at once. You pause it if you need to. Remember, it's always easier to do 1 at a time. If you do 2, you're watching for how they're both drying, and then you're limited to that drying time. But I got both, cleaning out my brush, drying my brush on my towel. And now I'll find somewhere where I think the light might be shining on it, so this upper part, and I'm going to lift out that highlight and follow the curve, and I love it. It really does a lot for depth and dimension on plants. I just did it one more time. I hope you're loving this one. Okay, I'm going to give this a quick dry. We're going to go back in and add this dark color for our soil. And then we're already, oh no, we're not to ink yet. Listen, I'm not going to do any of what I just said. I'm going to get my medium color before I forget, because I know I was going to. And this is going to be, watch this, dots. Just somewhere near the top on one side. Just put these dots that kind of extend over its edge. Isn't this funny? This is going to be our guide for our sketch so that we go around them. That's how we're going to get the wiggly line. Okay, now we're going to dry it. All right, we're getting some sort of dark value, something that looks either like soil or a similar color to your pot. Light on the tip of your brush. Let's just get that in there. So the bottom portion should be a smooth line because that is blocked by the front of the cup. The back part could be bumpy like this if you decide. But this one, I'm going to bring it in front of that leaf. Yeah, I think that works. So the top part could be bumpy, but the front should be smooth because the cup is in front of it. Okay, quick dry. The most important part I'm going to tell you about this part where we do the ink. Stick with me here. I can see it best on this one. Do you see how you want this part to not go all the way through? You want, right? Because this is the outside of the cup and that's the inside. And if you close it off, it will look more like this one. In my opinion, it's just a little bit, I like this one better. I like the one on the right, right? So we'll use that as our guide for a second here. And so that means we're following this dark color and kind of swooping right around it. Great. And this part, I'm actually not even going to finish. I'm going to kind of go around like that. It's just, you can if you want, go towards the back. I'm not going to finish any, I don't care about my lines being finished today. So, but I want to see that lightness right there. And I'm going to quick do the bottom of the pot. I'm going to do the feet first though, because stuff like this, the feet are in front. And I don't want to accidentally have this line cutting into my foot. Some lines up here. I can't wait to see what you guys do for this one. I hope you liked it. You can tell I was more like nervous about it. I've taught a lot of classes, but never anything like this where it's so, what's the word? Encompassing? Comprehensive, maybe? Do you see how I just did this one? I went up, and where these are, I wiggled around it and then came back down. So those were our guide for our wiggly lines, and we come back down. I like that one a little bit less, but that's okay. Coming up, curving the top, wiggling around, and coming back down. I'm going fast on this part because I only have a few more minutes, but yeah, just following those lines that you gave, and then we'll add a few details to the inside of the leaves if we want to. Can't wait to see this one. I would love to see it on my Facebook page, Audrey Shantz Art. But don't forget commenting on these videos. This is where I'm choosing the the people who are going to win some of my free art prints. I just quickly did this. I probably should have done it slower, but look, I'll do it on this one. See these lines I just put through the bottom? I started at the bottom center and followed the curves. Start at the bottom center of whatever it is, so that's here, and follow your curves. And just kind of go lighter on your ink as you get where you want to stop. So just kind of fade it out. If you want to add more details than that, you can. I think you should sign your artwork. I hope you're proud of this one. Color matching and shape matching, super helpful for me when I started, and thinking about it like just chunking in the colors. Okay, so this is what we've got. We are, what is this? This was day 19, so I'm taking my paint, swiping it off, and we did it. I'll see you tomorrow.